To find the truth at the center of the Great Darkness, Jonathan Kent the Superman and a ragtag team of superheroes must lead an excursion deep into the heart of the Green Lantern. What'll that mean? Well, let's hop into the pages of Dark Crisis, the Deadly Green issue number 1, and find out together, shall we? Alrighty then, so this newest Dark Crisis tie-in story actually picks up on several story threads left over from the main Dark Crisis. We actually check back on in with Jade and Obsidian, who, if you were reading Infinite Frontier and Justice League Incarnate and all the other Joshua Williamson stories that led up to Dark Crisis, you'll remember that these two were actually pretty damn important, but then kind of got sidelined. Well, thankfully, Ram V picks up the ball and runs with it here. You may remember from the main Dark Crisis book, Swamp Thing Alec Holland had said that the Great Darkness, the big threat that's affecting the DC Universe now, is different from how he remembered it. In order to better understand their enemy, John Constantine and the leftovers from Justice League Dark have decided to unite for one crazy mission behind enemy lines. As Alan Scott, the original Golden Age Green Lantern, explains, his magical Green Lantern ring actually has itself a deep tether to the primordial world. And because of that, he thinks that if he uses his lantern power in conjunction with his son Obsidian's own connection to darkness, then they can actually take a trip to converse with the Great Darkness itself. John Kent, the Superman, opts to lead this mission because, much like his father Clark, he couldn't possibly ever ask anyone to undertake such a dangerous quest that he himself wasn't willing to go on. There's also Levi, the new Ram V original Swamp Thing. I don't actually know much about him because I haven't been reading his book, but I have heard good things, as well as Rachel Roth Raven. John Constantine himself went along for the ride, but while the young people ended up getting sent to one end of Green Lantern, World Poor John ended up getting sent directly into the heart of darkness, wherein at first he ends up coming face to face with the Upside Down Man, the big original James Tynion villain from the Justice League Dark era of stories, but it's not as simple as all that. We'll come back to that. Superman, John, and the others see a dark tower in the distance and figure that's where they need to go if they want to have their audience with the Great Darkness they had planned. The only problem is this dimension is really messed up, and the closer they get to their goal, the more the Great Darkness ends up influencing them and bringing out their worst inner inadequacies. For John, he worries that he's not living up to his father's legacy. Again, pretty classic stuff for John at this point. Raven also struggles with her own demonic heritage involving Trigon, and well, quite simply, being a plant creature this far away from sunlight is doing Levi the new Swamp Thing no favors as his body begins to break down all around him. So yeah, it's a pretty bad scene, and that's before they all start fighting each other. Now, speaking of Trigon and John ends up having an audience with the big nasty devil creature before it quickly becomes apparent that the Upside Down Man, Trigon, aren't really actually here now. They're merely just the forms the Great Darkness has decided to take in order to hash things out with Constantine, a being that it seems to actually respect because John has always had one foot in the darkness anyway. Through its puppet mouths, the Great Darkness whacks poetically a bit, saying how it is an old eldritch being here since time immemorial and how it has always watched the light flicker from outside itself. But also how the Great Darkness wasn't necessarily evil either, it just craved to return to an age of nothingness, but how in its own weird way the darkness was also rooting for the light, and how there's no better personification of the light in the universe than in the superheroes themselves. In fact, this story is wonderfully juxtaposed to the story of Jade and Obsidian, a brother and sister, a being of light and darkness, two superheroes and two children of a great Golden Age superhero who are forced to come together and save Alan Scott Green Lantern, before his body and mind end up going out and in doing so trapping John and the other heroes inside the Lantern realm forever. Again, pretty simple, straightforward stuff, but pretty effective too. Now, the closer they get to the Great Darkness, Raven is actually able to hold out mentally for longer than Superman and Swamp Thing, if only because, again, she too is a creature born of darkness. Still though, Raven fears going all the way, as the closer she gets to the Great Darkness, the more horrifying and demonic like her father she becomes. They have the idea though that if anyone could actually make it all the way to the Great Darkness, it would probably be Superman or Swamp Thing, considering that they are both characters very much so tied to the idea of light and particularly sunlight. Levi thinks that on their own they may not be able to accomplish this task, but that mankind is always stronger when working together and pushing each other up. It's because of that Swamp Thing ends up fusing with John the Superman and creating an admittedly super cool, mega awesome suit of green Swamp Thing armor for John to wear. I really like this look, actually. Man, can this be an action action figure or a skin in a video game? With the green basically tanking the unknowable eldritch hit from the Great Darkness, John is actually able to make it to the Dark Tower and into the inner sanctum of the Great Darkness. It's here that he realizes what's been tainting it this whole time. And that would be Pariah's machine from the original Crisis on Infinite Earths that destroyed the Infinite Earths back during that story. This revelation proving what was implied at the end of the previous Dark Crisis issue, and that is that Pariah may actually have corrupted the Great Darkness and not the other way around. And if you read the newest issue of Dark Crisis that came out this week as well, you'll know that that story basically confirmed it there too. John and the others end up escaping the Lantern. The Scott family are closer than ever before. Constantine has been sobered by his audience with the Great Darkness and wonders if they're going to have what it takes to actually win this battle as the comic comes to a close. And so that was Dark Crisis, the Deadly Green, issue number 1, everybody. And as far as tie-ins go, this one was certainly creative, had its interesting parts, but I wouldn't call it necessary reading. Basically, it takes them an entire extra-length issue to explain what Dark Crisis number 4 implied and what Dark Crisis number 5 more or less confirms, and that is, hey, Pariah's the real bad guy here. The Great Darkness is just more misunderstood than evil. I will hand it to Ram V, though. He certainly does a good job making use of his new Swamp Thing character and picking up a bunch of fun elements from his Justice League Dark run to bring here into this tie-in. Again, I don't necessarily think you're missing anything if you don't read it, but if you like the more magical side of the DC universe and wanted to see what they were doing during this big Crisis event storyline, then you could do a lot worse than this one. Overall, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. It was pretty good.
Hey there everyone, Kate Joel again, and I just want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. And hey, if you enjoyed the book I covered in this issue and want some comics of your own, might I recommend Book Depository? It's my #1 place for shopping for comic book trades. You get a great price, and if you use my link down in the description, you'll actually be helping me out at the same time. You get something, I get something, everybody wins, right? So until next time everyone, I've been Joel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.